saw you across the room, and for a split second I didn't know you. And it felt good. The lights were dim, the chatter of the crowd a soft hum in the background. But in that moment, it was just me and the stranger you'd become. Your face, once as familiar as my own, now carried lines I didn't recognize. A smile that didn't reach your eyes the way it used to. And for the first time in years, the weight of our history, those tangled threads of love, betrayal, and everything in between, lifted. Just for a second, I wondered, what if we could unknow the people, the habits, the versions of ourselves that weigh us down? What if we could meet them again, fresh, unburdened, as strangers? It's a strange thing to admit, isn't it? That there's relief in forgetting, in not knowing. But I think we've all felt it at some point. Maybe it was that friend you outgrew, the one whose laughter once filled your days, but now feels like a memory you'd rather leave behind. Or maybe it was a love that turned sour, where every glance, every word, became a reminder of what you lost. For me, it was both and more. It was the mirror, too. The person I saw staring back at me, day after day, someone I didn't recognize anymore. Someone weighed down by choices I'd made, paths I'd taken, and dreams I'd let slip away. Let me tell you a story. A few years back, I ran into an old friend at a coffee shop. We hadn't spoken in nearly a decade, not since college, when we were inseparable, sharing secrets over late-night study sessions, dreaming big about the lives we'd build. Back then, she was the kind of person who made you believe anything was possible. Her confidence was infectious, her smile a beacon. But when I saw her that day, something was different. Her hair was shorter, her eyes tired, and when she smiled, it was cautious, like she wasn't sure if she should. We exchanged polite hellos, caught up on the surface stuff, jobs, marriages, kids, but the ease we once had was gone. It wasn't her fault, or mine. Life had happened. We'd changed. And as we parted ways, I realized I didn't miss her, not the her she was now, and not even the her I'd once known. What I missed was the version of me I'd been when we were friends. That girl who believed in endless possibilities, who wasn't afraid to fail. That encounter stuck with me, gnawing at the edges of my mind. Why did it feel so freeing to see her as a stranger? Why did it hurt so much to see myself that way too? And that's when I started to understand sometimes the past isn't something to hold on to. It's not a treasure chest of golden memories. It's a shadow, a weight, a story we keep rewriting, even when the ending's already been written. But what if we could change that? What if we could look at the people, the moments, the versions of ourselves we've outgrown, and see them not as failures or losses, but as strangers we could meet again with curiosity, with kindness, with a chance to start fresh? That's what this book is about. It's not about erasing the past. No, that's impossible, and honestly, it's not even desirable. The scars, the lessons, the laughter, they're part of us. But what if we could see them with new eyes? What if we could find the courage to let go of the stories we've been telling ourselves? The ones that say we're defined by our mistakes, our heartbreaks, our missed opportunities. This isn't a book about forgetting. It's a book about remembering differently, about rediscovering the strength to turn the page and write a new chapter. It's about meeting the stranger you once knew and maybe, just maybe, liking them more than you ever did before. So, as you listen to this, I want you to think about something. Who in your life, or what part of you, do you wish you could meet again as a stranger? Is it the friend who drifted away, the lover who broke your heart, the dream you let go of? Or is it you, the you who laughed louder, loved harder, believed in something bigger? Take a moment. Let that question settle. Because in the chapters to come, we're going to explore how to find them again, how to unburden ourselves from the weight of who we were, and how to step into the possibility of who we could be. Together, let's discover what it means to see the stranger you once knew and to greet them with open arms. Chapter 1: The Weight of Familiarity. Imagine for a moment the people who know you best. Your partner, your parents, your oldest friend, the ones who've seen you at your highest and your lowest, who've witnessed the evolution of your laughter, your tears, your quirk. They're the roots of your life, anchoring you to the soil of shared history. But here's the thing about roots. Sometimes they grow so deep, so tangled, that they start to choke the very things they once nurtured. That's what familiarity can do. It can bind us so tightly to the past that we forget to see the present, forget to see each other as we are now. Take Anna and Mark, for example. They've been married for 15 years. 2 kids, a house in the suburbs, the kind of life that looks stable from the outside. But lately, every conversation feels like a replay of the last one. The way Mark leaves his coffee mug on the counter, the way Anna sighs when he forgets to take out the trash, it's not just routine anymore. It's a weight, a silent accusation that neither of them can shake. They used to talk about dreams, about the places they'd go, the lives they'd build together. Now it's all logistics. Who's picking up the kids? Who's paying the bills? One night, over a dinner neither of them really tastes, Anna looks at Mark and realizes she can't remember the last time she saw him. Not the man he is now, but the man he was when they first met, the one who made her heart race with a single glance, who promised her the world with a smile. And Mark, he feels it too, though he'd never admit it. He sees Anna, but it's through a fog of old arguments, unmet expectations, and the sheer exhaustion of knowing someone so well that you stop trying to understand them. Or consider Elena and her father, Joe. For years, their relationship has been a loop of the same scene. Joe calling to check in, Elena bristling at his questions, the tension building until one of them hangs up frustrated. It's always been this way, Joe, the overprotective dad, and Elena, the daughter who just wants space. But recently, Elena found an old photo album in her attic, filled with pictures of her as a toddler, Joe holding her on his shoulders, both of them laughing under a summer sky. She stared at those images, trying to reconcile the man in the photos with the one who still treats her like she's 12. And Joe, on his end, wonders when his little girl became this stranger who doesn't call unless she needs something. They're stuck, you see, in the grooves of who they used to be, unable to see the people they've become. This is the weight of familiarity. It's not just about knowing someone's habits or finishing their sentences. It's about how that knowledge can blind us, how it can turn love or duty or friendship into a kind of prison. We stop asking questions. We stop seeing. We assume we know everything there is to know, and in doing so, we miss the subtle shifts, the growth, the changes that make a person who they are today. Anna and Mark aren't the same people who fell in love all those years ago, but they treat each other like they are. Elena and Joe aren't the father and daughter from those old photos, but they act as if time hasn't moved forward. And isn't that true for all of us, in some way? The friend who still sees you as the awkward teenager you once were, the sibling who expects you to play the same role you always have, the partner who remembers every fight but forgets every triumph. It's not their fault and it's not ours. It's just human nature to cling to what's familiar, to find comfort in the patterns we've carved out over years. But comfort can become a cage, and familiarity can become a fog. When we stop seeing people as they are, when we stop seeing ourselves as we are, we lose something vital. We lose the chance to connect, to grow, to rediscover. Because here's the truth, no one stays the same. Not you, not me, not the people we love. We evolve, we change, we carry new dreams and new wounds. But if we're too busy holding on to the past, we'll never see the present clearly. So what can we do about it? How do we lift this weight, this burden of knowing too much? It starts with a simple act, looking again. Really looking. Not at the person you think you know, but at the person standing in front of you now. Ask yourself, who are they today? What have they carried? What have they overcome? What have they become? And then turn that same lens on yourself. Who are you now compared to the you they first met, the you they think they know? Here's something you can try, something to carry with you as you listen to the rest of this story. Take a moment, maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow, and think about 3 relationships in your life that feel too known. Maybe it's your spouse, who you love but can't seem to talk to anymore without falling into the same old arguments. Maybe it's your parent who still sees you as the child you were, not the adult you've become. Maybe it's that friend you've known since childhood, but who now feels like a stranger in a familiar shell. Write them down or just hold them in your mind. And next to each name, jot down why it feels heavy. Is it the expectations, the unspoken resentments, the way time has changed you both, but you're still acting like it hasn't? This isn't about blame, and it's not about fixing everything overnight. It's about awareness, about opening your eyes to the possibility that the people you think you know might be strangers waiting to be rediscovered. And maybe, just maybe, you're a stranger to them too. Someone new, someone worth meeting all over again. Because in that space, in that fresh, curious gaze, there's room for growth, for connection, for a love or a bond that's not weighed down by the ghosts of who you used to be. So, as we move forward, carry this with you. Think about Anna and Mark, about Elena and Joe, about the ways we all get stuck in the weight of familiarity. And ask yourself, who can I see anew? Who can I meet again? Not as the person I've always known, but as the person they are right now? Because in that question lies the root of something powerful, the chance to untangle the past and plant new seeds for the future. Chapter 2, The Stories We Carry. Close your eyes for a moment and listen to the voices inside your head. Not the ones telling you what to do today or what you forgot to buy at the store, but the deeper ones, the ones that whisper in the quiet hours. Maybe it's the voice that says, I'm the one who always messes up, or I'll never be enough, or this is just who I am, and I can't change. These aren't random thoughts. They're stories, narratives we've woven from the threads of our past, stories we carry like heavy suitcases we never unpack. And the thing is, we don't even realize how much they shape us, how they trap us in roles we've long outgrown. Let me take you back to a memory of mine, one that still stings when I think about it. I was 22, fresh out of college, with a head full of dreams and a heart full of hope. I'd landed my first real job at a small publishing house, and I was sure this was it, the start of everything. I imagined myself as the next big editor, discovering brilliant voices, leaving my mark on the world. But on my third week, I was given a manuscript to review a debut novel from a young writer who was nervous but brimming with potential. I stayed up late for nights, scribbling notes, pouring my soul into feedback. When I presented it to my boss, I was so proud, so certain I'd nailed it. But he looked at me, then at my notes, and said, "This is a mess. You missed the point entirely." I expected better. His words hit like a punch, and in that moment something shifted. I didn't hear the part where he said I could improve, or where he suggested I try again. All I heard was failure. And from that day, I started telling myself a story: I'm not good enough. I'll never get it right. I'm the one who messes up. That story followed me for years. Every time I faced a challenge, every time I had to present an idea or take a risk, that voice would pipe up, reminding me of that moment in the office, of the look on my boss's face. It became my identity, my shield, my excuse. Of course, I didn't get the promotion. I always mess up. Of course, that relationship didn't work. I'm not good enough. It wasn't just about work anymore. It was about me, about who I thought I was. And the worst part, I didn't even question it. I carried that story like a badge, like it was the truest thing about me. Even as the years passed and I grew, learned, changed. But here's the insight I stumbled upon years later, after too many nights staring at the ceiling, wondering why I felt so stuck. Those stories we carry, they're not facts. They're not etched in stone. They're narratives we've created, often from a single moment, a single failure, a single word spoken in anger or disappointment. And while they might have started as a way to make sense of the world, they can trap us in roles we've outgrown, roles that no longer fit the person we've become. I'm not that 22-year-old anymore, trembling in front of her boss, but for years I acted like I was. And maybe you're not the kid who tripped on stage during the school play, or the teenager who got dumped at prom, or the adult who lost a job or missed a deadline. But if you're like me, you might still be carrying those moments, letting them define you, letting them whisper that you're less than you are. Think about your own stories for a second. What are the ones you tell yourself? Maybe it's, I'm the peacemaker, always smoothing things over even when I'm burning out. Or I'm the screw-up, the one who can't be trusted with big responsibilities. Or I'm the one who doesn't deserve love, not after what happened back then. These stories aren't just words, they're chains. They keep us from seeing who we could be, from stepping into the possibility of change. They make us strangers to ourselves because we're so busy living in the past that we forget to look at the present. Let me tell you something else I learned. Those stories can be rewritten. Not erased. Erasing them would be like trying to erase a scar, but rewritten, reframed, seen through new eyes. That moment in the publishing house, it wasn't just a failure. It was a lesson. It was the first time I realized how much I cared, how deeply I wanted to understand stories, how willing I was to work hard even when I stumbled. My boss wasn't wrong to push me. He was showing me I had more to learn. But I turned it into a prison sentence instead of a stepping stone. And you can do the same with your stories. That failure, that heartbreak, that embarrassment, it's not the end. It's a chapter, not the whole book. So here's what I want you to do. Something to carry with you as you listen to the rest of this journey. Find a quiet moment, maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow, and grab a piece of paper or open your phone. Write a letter to your younger self, the one who experienced that defining moment, the one who started carrying that story. Tell them what happened, how it felt, why it hurt. Pour it all out, the fear, the shame, the anger. Let it be raw, let it be real. Then take a deep breath and rewrite that letter. But this time, write it as if you were a stranger, someone who doesn't know the weight of that moment, someone who sees it with fresh eyes. What would they say? Maybe they'd say, you tried your best and that's enough. Or that failure wasn't the end, it was the beginning of something new. Or you're not defined by this one moment, but by all the moments that come after. Don't rush it. Let the words come slowly. Let them surprise you. Because in that act of rewriting, you're not just changing the story, you're changing how you see yourself. I did this once, years after that meeting with my boss. I wrote to that 22-year-old me, trembling and defeated, and I told her everything, the pain, the doubt, the fear that she'd never be good enough. Then I rewrote it, as if I were a mentor, a friend, a stranger who believed in her. And you know what? It wasn't easy. It felt strange, almost dishonest to see myself that way. But as I read those new words, something shifted. The weight lifted just a little. I wasn't the failure I'd always thought I was. I was someone who'd stumbled, yes, but also someone who'd kept going, who'd learned, who'd grown. That's the power of this exercise. It's not about pretending the past didn't happen. It's about meeting that past self and those old stories as strangers. It's about asking, who are you really? And who could you be if you let go of the narrative that's been holding you back? Because we all carry stories, but we don't have to let them carry us. We can set them down, examine them, rewrite them, and walk forward lighter, freer, more ourselves than we've ever been. So, as you listen to this, carry that prompt with you. Think about your stories, the ones that whisper in the dark, the ones that keep you small. And when you're ready, sit down with that paper, with that phone, and start writing. Meet your younger self as a stranger would, with curiosity, with kindness, with the promise of a new beginning. Because in that act, you're not just rewriting a letter, you're rewriting your life. Chapter 3. When time builds walls, think about the last time you drove the same route home, day after day, year after year. At first, it might have felt new, the turns, the landmarks, the rhythm of the traffic, but over time it became automatic, almost invisible. You could do it with your eyes closed, or so it feels. That's what time does. It carves ruts into our lives, deep grooves of habits, grudges, routines that start as paths, but turn into walls. And the longer we travel those paths, the harder it becomes to see a way out, to imagine anything different. Take Sam, for instance. He's 42 now, a mid-level manager at a logistics firm, the kind of job that pays the bills but sucks the life out of him. He didn't set out to be there forever. Back in his 20s, he dreamed of starting his own business, something creative, something that mattered. He had ideas, apps, art projects, even a novel he scribbled in late nights after work. But life happened. A mortgage, a family, a promotion that felt like a lifeline but turned into a chain. Now, when someone asks what he does, he says, I'm in logistics, and it's not just a job title, it's who he is. Or at least, who he thinks he is. He wakes up every morning, checks his email, sits in meetings he doesn't care about, and comes home to collapse on the couch, too tired to even think about those old dreams. He tells himself, this is just who I am now. This is what I do. But deep down, he knows it's a lie. A wall he's built brick by brick, year by year. It's not just jobs, though. Think about the grudges we hold onto, the ones that start as a spark, a sharp word, a broken promise, a betrayal, and grow into fortresses of resentment. Maybe it's that sibling who never apologized for something they said decades ago, or that friend who ghosted you after you needed them most. At first, the hurt was raw, but over time, it calcified, turned into a story you tell yourself they don't care. They never will. I can't trust them. And routines? They're the quietest walls of all. The way you always eat the same breakfast, watch the same shows, avoid the same conversations because that's just how it is. Time doesn't just pass, it piles up layer upon layer until those ruts become so deep you can't see over the edges. Here's the insight, the hard truth: the longer we know something, whether it's a job, a grudge, a routine, the harder it is to see it differently. Familiarity isn't just comforting, it's blinding. We get so used to the weight of those walls that we stop questioning them. Sam doesn't hate his job every day, not consciously. Some days, he even convinces himself he's lucky to have it. But the dreams he once had, they're buried under years of "I can't, it's too late, this is who I am now." The grudge you hold against your sibling? It's not just about what they did, it's about all the years you've spent reinforcing it, letting it define your relationship. And those routines, they feel safe, but they're also a kind of stagnation, a refusal to ask, what if there's more? I've been there too. For years I had a morning routine that felt unbreakable. Wake up, scroll through my phone, drink coffee, rush out the door. It was efficient, predictable, and it kept me from thinking too hard about whether I was happy. But one day, I missed my alarm, and in that extra half hour of unexpected quiet, I realized I couldn't remember the last time I'd done something new, something just for me. The routine wasn't just a habit, it was a wall, keeping me from seeing what else might be possible. So, what do we do about it? How do we break through those walls time has built? It starts with a single, simple act: imagining them gone. Not tearing them down all at once, that's overwhelming and often impossible, but picturing what life would look like without them. It's like standing at the edge of a rut and peering over, asking, what if this wasn't here? What if I could see differently? Here's your action step, something to carry with you as you listen to the rest of this story. Find a quiet moment, maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow, and think about one wall in your life. It could be the job you're stuck in like Sam. It could be the grudge you've carried too long, or the routine that feels more like a cage than a comfort. Write it down or just hold it in your mind. Then, close your eyes and imagine it gone. What would that look like? If you weren't in that job, what would you do instead? If you let go of that grudge, how would your relationship change? If you broke that routine, what new possibility might open up? For Sam, it might look like this. He imagines quitting his job, not recklessly, but with a plan. He sees himself at a desk, sketching out ideas for that app he always wanted to build, feeling the rush of excitement he hasn't felt in years. For you, it might be different. Maybe it's picturing a conversation with that sibling, not to rehash the past, but to start fresh. Maybe it's envisioning a morning where you wake up and, instead of reaching for your phone, you step outside, breathe in the air and ask, what do I want today? This isn't about pretending the walls aren't there or wishing them away with magic. It's about creating space, even just a crack, where new light can get in. Because the longer we live with those walls, the more we forget they're not permanent. They're not who we are. They're just what we've built, brick by brick over time. And bricks can be moved, rearranged, even dismantled, if we're willing to see them for what they are. I did this once with my own routine. That morning, I missed my alarm. I decided to try something different. Instead of rushing, I sat on my porch with my coffee, no phone, no distractions. And in that silence, I saw the wall for what it was, a habit I'd let define my days. So I started small. I took a different route to work, tried a new calf, picked up a book I'd been meaning to read. It wasn't revolutionary, but it was a start, a way of saying, I'm not just this. There's more. So as you listen to this, carry that action step with you. Think about your walls, the ones time has built, the ones that feel so familiar you barely notice them anymore. And when you're ready, imagine one of them gone. Not all of them, not yet just one. What does that freedom feel like? What does it open up? Because in that imagination, in that small act of vision, you're not just breaking through, you're rediscovering who you could be, beyond the ruts, beyond the grudges, beyond the routines. You're meeting yourself and your life as if for the first time. Chapter 4, The Courage to Unsee. There's a moment, isn't there, when you stand at the edge of something big, something you know you need to do, but the thought of it makes your stomach twist and your palms sweat. It's the moment you realize you might have to let go. Not just of a thing, but of a person, a dream, a version of yourself you've clung to for years. And the fear? It's not just fear of loss, it's fear of betrayal. What if letting go means you're giving up? What if it means you're not who you thought you were? What if it means starting over alone in the dark? That fear is real and it's heavy. We've all felt it. Maybe it's the friend who's been in your life forever, but lately, Every conversation leaves you drained, every memory tainted by their sharp words or broken promises. Maybe it's a dream you chased for years, a career, a relationship, a vision of success that now feels like a chain instead of a lifeline. Or maybe it's you, the you who's been playing the same role for so long you're not sure who you'd be without it. The peacemaker, the dreamer, the fixer, the failure, whatever label you've worn, it's become a part of you, and the thought of shedding it feels like stepping off a cliff. Let me take you back to a moment of my own, one that still echoes in my chest when I think about it. It was 5 years ago, and I was tangled up with someone I'll call Laura. We met in my early 30s, at a time when I was searching for connection, for someone who understood the chaos of my life. Laura was charismatic, funny, the kind of person who could light up a room and make you feel like the only one in it. At first, our friendship was everything: late-night talks, shared dreams, a bond that felt unbreakable. But over time, something shifted. Her compliments turned to criticism, her laughter to sarcasm. She'd call me out in front of others, dismiss my ideas, and then act like it was all a joke when I confronted her. I told myself it was my fault, that I was too sensitive, that I needed to work harder to keep her in my life. After all, she'd been there through so much: breakups, job losses, moments I couldn't face alone. Letting go felt like betrayal, like I was throwing away years of history, like I was admitting I'd been wrong about her, about us. But one night, it hit me. We were at a bar, and she made a snide remark about a project I'd been pouring my heart into, laughing as if it was nothing. The room went quiet for me, even though the music kept playing, and I saw her clearly not as the friend I'd loved, but as the person she'd become, someone who dimmed my light instead of fueling it. I went home that night and cried, not just because of her words, but because I knew what I had to do. I had to walk away. Not in a dramatic fight, not with a grand gesture, but with a quiet, steady decision to unsee her, to let go of the story I'd built around our friendship. It wasn't easy. The next day, I sent her a message, short, polite, saying I needed space. She didn't respond, and that silence stung more than any argument would have. For weeks, I second-guessed myself. What if I was overreacting? What if she changed? What if I was the problem? But as the days turned to months, something unexpected happened. I started to breathe easier. I started to see myself differently, not as the person who needed her approval, but as someone who deserved respect, who could stand on her own. Letting go wasn't betrayal. It was freedom. That's the insight I want you to carry with you. Letting go isn't about turning your back on someone or something. It's about freeing yourself to see, to be, to grow. We think holding on is loyalty, but sometimes it's the opposite. It's loyalty to a ghost, to a version of a person or a dream or a self that no longer exists. Laura wasn't the friend I met all those years ago, and I wasn't the same person who needed her. The longer we clung to each other, the more we built walls between who we were and who we could be. And isn't that true for so many of us? The job you hate but stay in because it's stable. The dream you abandon but still mourn. The version of you that feels safe but stifles who are you really beneath all that holding on? Think about your own life for a moment. What are you afraid to let go of? Is it that friend who drains you, even though you've known them since high school? Is it the dream of being a musician or a writer or a traveler that you shoved because life got in the way? Or is it you, the you who's been the caretaker, the perfectionist, the underdog for so long you're not sure who you'd be without those roles? The fear isn't just about loss, it's about the unknown, the emptiness that might follow. But here's the secret, that emptiness isn't a void. It's space. Space to breathe, to create, to rediscover. So here's what I want you to do, an exercise to carry with you as you listen to the rest of this story. Find a quiet moment, maybe tonight, maybe when you're driving, maybe before you sleep, and close your eyes. Picture that person, that dream, that version of yourself you're afraid to let go of.
See them clearly as if they're standing in front of you.
Now imagine meeting them again, but with no history. No past fights, no old hurts, no expectations. What do you see? If you met that friend as a stranger, what would you notice about them? If you encountered that dream with fresh eyes, what would excite you about it? If you faced that version of yourself without the weight of all those years, who would you be? For me, it was like this. I pictured Laura, not as the friend who hurt me, but as a woman I'd just met at a coffee shop. I saw her smile, her energy, but also her flaws, her insecurity, her need to be the center of attention. And I realized I didn't need to fix her, or myself, or us. I could just walk away, not with anger, but with clarity. When I imagined my old dream of writing a book, not as a failure, but as a possibility, I felt that spark again, that pull towards something bigger. And when I saw myself, not as the person who always needed others, but as someone strong and whole, I started to believe I could be her. This visualization isn't about erasing the past. It's about unseeing it, about stripping away the layers of time and pain and habit so you can see what's left, because what's left is often more beautiful, more true than what you were holding on to. Letting go doesn't mean you failed. It means you're brave enough to choose freedom over fear, growth over stagnation, yourself over a shadow. I did this exercise after I walked away from Laura, and it changed everything. I started saying no to things that didn't serve me. Yes, to dreams I'd buried, and hello to a version of myself I'd forgotten. It wasn't instant, and it wasn't easy, but it was worth it, and it can be for you too. So, as you listen to this, carry that visualization with you. Picture that person, that dream, that self. Meet them again, as strangers with no history to weigh you down. What do you see? What do you feel? Because in that space, in that courage to unsee, there's a path to something new, a path to the you who's been waiting all along to be free. Chapter 5, Forgiveness as a Stranger. Forgiveness. It's a word that can feel like a weight, a burden, a demand we place on ourselves or others. We're told we should forgive, that it's noble, healing, the right thing to do. But what if forgiveness isn't about excusing pain or pretending it never happened? What if it's not even about the other person at all? What if, instead, it's about releasing the expectations we've carried, the stories we've told, the roles we've forced ourselves and others to play? What if forgiveness could be as simple and as freeing as meeting someone or something as a stranger, with no history, no debt, no score to settle? Let me take you back to a story from my own life, one that's still tender when I think about it. I grew up with a younger brother, Tom, 2 years my junior, and for most of our lives, we were rivals. It wasn't dramatic, not always, but it was constant, a quiet undercurrent of competition, resentment, and misunderstanding. As kids, it was over small things: who got more attention from mom, who was better at sports, who broke the lamp and blamed the other. As adults, it shifted but didn't fade. He'd criticize my choices, my career, my relationships, and I'd fire back, pointing out his failures, his laziness, his refusal to grow up. Every holiday, every family gathering, it was the same dance. Sharp words, hurt feelings, and a wall of silence that grew taller with each passing year. I told myself I couldn't forgive him because he didn't deserve it, because he'd never apologized, because the pain of our history was too deep to let go. But one summer, something shifted. We were both back home for our parents' anniversary, and I watched him from across the room, laughing with our cousins, holding his newborn niece, looking older, softer, more tired than I remembered. And for the first time, I didn't see my rival. I saw a stranger. Not the brother who teased me relentlessly, or the man who dismissed my dreams, but someone I didn't know anymore. Someone who carried his own scars, his own stories. In that moment, I realized I'd been holding on to expectations that he should be the brother I wanted, that he owed me apologies, that our past defined our future. And those expectations, they weren't just chaining him, they were chaining me. I didn't confront him that night, didn't make a big speech or demand closure. Instead, I stepped back. I stopped engaging in the old arguments, stopped waiting for him to change, stopped measuring him against the brother he'd never be. I let go of the need for him to acknowledge his part, to fix what was broken. And in that letting go, something unexpected happened. The anger started to dissolve. Not because he'd earned it, not because he'd suddenly become the brother I wanted, but because I stopped needing him to be. I forgave him, not as my brother, but as a stranger, someone I owed nothing, and who owed me nothing in return. That's the insight I want you to hold on to. Strangers don't owe each other anything, and that's liberating. When we meet someone as a stranger, there's no ledger of past wrongs, no baggage of unmet expectations, no history to drag us down. And forgiveness, when reframed this way, isn't about excusing pain or pretending it didn't hurt. It's not about saying what you did was okay. It's about saying, I release you from the story I've been telling about you, and I release myself from the pain of holding on to it. It's about unseeing the roles, the grudges, the patterns, and seeing instead a person or a memory or a moment as it is now, without the weight of what came before. Think about your own life for a moment. Who do you need to forgive? Maybe it's a parent who never understood you, a friend who betrayed your trust, a partner who broke your heart, or maybe it's yourself for a mistake you can't let go of, a dream you abandoned, a version of you that feels like a failure. We carry these expectations, these demands, like anchors. They should have known better. I should have done more. They owe me an apology. But what if you let that go? What if you met them or yourself as a stranger with no history to bind you? What if forgiveness wasn't about fixing the past, but about freeing the present? Let me give you an example from someone else's life, a client I worked with years ago. Her name was Claire, and she'd been estranged from her best friend, Maya, for over a decade after a falling out over a business venture. Maya had taken credit for Claire's ideas, and the betrayal had left Claire bitter, unable to move on. She'd tried therapy, journaling, even confrontation, but nothing worked. Then I asked her to try something different, to write an apology to Maya, not as her friend, not as the person who'd been wronged, but as a stranger who just heard the story. Pretend you don't know either of you, I said. What would you say? Claire hesitated, but she did it. She wrote, "Dear stranger, I hear you've been carrying this pain, this sense of injustice. But what if it doesn't define you? What if you could let it go, not because she deserves it, but because you do?" She didn't send it, didn't even show it to Maya. But the act of writing it, of stepping outside her role as the betrayed friend, shifted something in her. She stopped seeing Maya as the villain and started seeing her as a flawed human, just like anyone else. And in that shift, Claire found peace, not closure, not reconciliation, but a quiet freedom from the expectation that Maya owed her something. That's what I want you to do now, an exercise to carry with you as you listen to the rest of this story. Find a quiet moment tonight, tomorrow, whenever you can, and grab a pen and paper or open a note on your phone. Think of someone you need to forgive, someone whose actions or words still sting, someone you've been waiting on to make things right. It could be a sibling like Tom, a friend like Maya, a parent, a partner, even yourself. Now, write them a stranger's apology. Not an apology from you to them, but an apology as if you were a stranger, someone who doesn't know the history, someone who sees only the present moment. Start with something like, "Dear stranger, I hear you've been hurt, and I'm sorry for that." Not because you're wrong or they're right, but because carrying this pain isn't serving you. Keep going. Let the words flow. Let them be honest but detached, like you're advising someone else's story. Don't worry about grammar or perfection, just write what comes. And when you're done, don't send it. This isn't about them, it's about you. It's about releasing the expectation that they owe you, that the past must be settled before you can move forward. I did this with Tom, years after that summer at our parents' anniversary. I wrote, "Dear stranger, I hear you've been carrying this rivalry, this resentment for so long, but what if you let it go? What if your brother isn't the enemy, but just another person trying to figure it out, just like you?" I didn't show it to him, didn't even tell him I'd written it, but reading those words back to myself, I felt the walls between us crumble, not because he changed, but because I did. I saw him as a stranger, as someone I didn't owe a grudge, and who didn't owe me perfection. And in that, I found forgiveness, not as a gift to him, but as a gift to me. So, as you listen to this, carry that exercise with you. Think about that person, that pain, that expectation, and when you're ready, write that stranger's apology. Meet them or yourself as someone new with no history to bind you, no score to settle. Because in that act, you're not just forgiving, you're freeing yourself to see, to be, to live beyond the walls of what was. You're stepping into the liberation of unseeing, of letting go, of meeting the stranger you once knew with open, unburdened eye. Chapter 6, The Space Between. There's a kind of magic in distance, isn't there? Not just the miles between places. but the space we create, physical, emotional, mental, between ourselves and the people, the habits, the versions of life we've outgrown. It's not about running away or shutting people out. It's about breathing, about finding room to see things differently, to hear your own voice again. Distance isn't emptiness, it's possibility, a canvas where new perspectives can take shape. And sometimes, it's the only thing that can reset us, that can show us who we are when we're not tangled up in the noise of everything else. Let me take you back to a moment of my own, a time when I didn't even realize how much I needed that space. It was a few years ago, after a stretch of months where life felt like treadmill work, responsibilities, relationships, all blurring together in a cycle I couldn't break. I was exhausted, but I kept going, telling myself I didn't have time to stop. That stopping meant failing. Then, out of the blue, a friend offered me the keys to their cabin in the mountains, a remote spot with no Wi-Fi, no neighbors, just trees and silence. At first, I hesitated. Who takes a week off just to be alone? But something in me, some quiet, desperate part, said yes. I packed a bag, drove up winding roads, and arrived at a place that felt like another world. The cabin was small, wooden, surrounded by pines that whispered in the wind. No phone signal, no emails, no deadlines. For the first day, I was restless. I paced, I journaled, I stared out the window, wondering what I was doing there. But by the second day, something shifted. I started to notice things I hadn't in years, the way the light hit the trees at dawn, the sound of a creek nearby, the feel of cool air on my skin. I walked for hours, no destination, no purpose, just moving. And in that movement, in that silence, I started to see myself differently. I thought about the job I'd been grinding at, the one that paid well but left me hollow. I thought about the friend I'd been pouring energy into, someone who took more than they gave. I thought about the dreams I'd shelved, the ones I told myself were impractical, unrealistic. And for the first time in ages, I didn't judge those thoughts. I didn't rush to fix them or push them away. I just let them be, let them breathe in the space of that cabin in the distance from my usual life. By the end of the week, I wasn't the same person who'd arrived. I wasn't fixed, not entirely, but I was lighter, clearer, more myself than I'd been in years. That solo trip wasn't just a break. It was a reset, a chance to see my life, my choices, my relationships, as if I were a stranger looking in. That's the beauty of distance. It lets us breathe and see anew. When we're too close to something, whether it's a job, a person, a routine, or even our own thoughts, we lose perspective. We get caught in the details, the daily grind, the expectations we've built up over time. But step back, create some space, physical, emotional, mental, and suddenly the picture changes. The job isn't just a paycheck, it's a choice you made, one you can unmake. The friend isn't just a presence, they're a relationship you can evaluate, nurture, or let go of. The dreams you abandoned, they're not dead, they're waiting for you to see them again with fresh eyes. Think about your own life for a moment. Where do you need space? Maybe it's from that coworker who drains your energy every day, their voice echoing in your head long after you leave the office. Maybe it's from the routine that feels like a straitjacket: wake up, work, eat, sleep, repeat. Or maybe it's from yourself, from the constant self-criticism, the voice that says you're not doing enough, not being enough. We're so used to being connected, to filling every moment with noise and obligation, that we forget how much we need that gap, that pause, that breath between. I've seen this with others too. There was a woman I knew, let's call her Rachel, who'd been in a marriage that had grown stale. Not bad, just empty. They lived together, ate together, slept in the same bed, but they hadn't really seen each other in years. One day, she took a weekend away, just her and a hotel room, in a city she'd never visited. No kids, no husband, no plans. At first, she felt guilty, like she was abandoning her family. But by the second day, she started to feel her shoulders relax, her mind clear. She journaled, walked, sat in Cafe S, and realized she missed her husband, not the man he'd become in their rut, but the man she'd fallen in love with. When she came back, she didn't demand change or start a fight. She just started talking, really. That space didn't fix everything, but it gave her the clarity to see what she wanted, what she needed. So, here's what I want you to do, a takeaway to carry with you as you listen to the rest of this story. Plan a small stranger moment a day alone, a new routine, something to create distance and let you see anew. It doesn't have to be a week in the mountains like my trip, or a weekend getaway like Rachel's. It could be as simple as taking a morning to walk in a part of town you've never explored, turning off your phone for an afternoon, or trying a new hobby that has nothing to do with your usual life. The goal isn't to escape forever. It's to create a pocket of space where you can breathe, where you can meet yourself, your life, your relationships, as if for the first time. For me, after that cabin trip, I started small. I took a different route to work, lingered in a park I'd always driven past, picked up a sketchbook, even though I hadn't drawn since I was a kid. Each of those moments was like a mini reset, a chance to see the world and myself with fresh eyes. And you can do the same. Pick a day, pick an hour, pick a moment, and step away. No expectations, no agenda, just space. What do you notice when the noise fades? What do you feel when you're not rushing, not performing, not proving? This isn't about isolation or disconnection. It's about connection to yourself, to what matters. Distance doesn't mean you stop loving, stop working, stop living. It means you step back long enough to remember why you do those things, who you do them for. That cabin in the mountains didn't just change my perspective. It reminded me that I have one, that I can choose it, that I can create it, and you can too. So, as you listen to this, carry that plan with you. Think about your life, your routines, your relationships. Where can you create space? What stranger moment can you carve out a walk, a silence, a new path? Because in that space, in that distance, there's beauty. There's clarity. There's the chance to see anew, to breathe deeply, to step back into your life not as the person you were, but as the person you could be, unburdened, refreshed, ready to meet the world again with open eyes. Chapter 7. Saying goodbye without words. Goodbyes aren't the loud ones, the fights, the tears, the dramatic exits we see in movies. Sometimes they're the quiet ones, the ones that happen not with words or scenes, but with a slow, steady fade, a turning away that feels both gentle and final. Letting go doesn't always require confrontation, doesn't always demand explanation. Sometimes it's enough to simply step back, to release without fanfare, to allow the space between to do the work. And in that silence, there's a kind of grace, a power we often overlook. Let me take you back to a story from my own life, a time when I learned this lesson in the softest, most unexpected way. A few years ago, I had a friend, let's call her Jane, who'd been in my life for nearly a decade. We met at a work conference, bonded over shared ambitions, and for a while, she was my confidant, my cheerleader, my partner in late-night brainstorming sessions. But over time, something shifted. Her encouragement turned to criticism, her presence to a kind of demand. Every call, every text, every meeting felt like an obligation, a drain I couldn't name but couldn't ignore. She'd comment on my choices, "You're too cautious, you should be further along by now," and though she'd laugh it off, the words lingered, heavy and sharp. I told myself I couldn't let go, that friendships like ours were rare, that I owed her my loyalty. But deep down, I knew I was exhausted, that her presence was no longer a gift but a weight. I didn't want a confrontation. The thought of sitting her down, hashing out our history felt overwhelming, almost impossible. I wasn't even sure what I'd say. How do you tell someone they've become a shadow in your life without sounding cruel? So I didn't. Instead, I started small. I stopped initiating contact. I let her text go unanswered for a day, then 2, then a week. I skipped our usual coffee dates, citing busyness, and gradually, the space between us grew. She noticed, of course. She left voicemails, sent emails, even showed up at my door once. But I stayed steady, polite, but distant. No arguments, no accusations, just a quiet withdrawal. It wasn't easy. There were moments I second-guessed myself, moments I felt guilty, moments I wondered if I was being selfish. But as the weeks turned to months, I started to feel lighter, freer, more myself. The friendship didn't end with a bang. It faded, like a song winding down, until one day I realized I hadn't thought of her in weeks. And in that silence, I found peace. That's the insight I want you to carry with you. Not every goodbye needs a scene, some just fade. We're conditioned to think closure requires drama, that letting go means a final fight, a tearful confession, a definitive break. But life isn't always like that. Sometimes the most powerful releases are the ones that happen without words, without confrontation, without anyone else even noticing. It's not about avoiding conflict, it's about honoring your own boundaries, your own need for space, your own right to move on. Jane didn't deserve my silence because she was wrong or I was right. She deserved it because I deserved to let her go, to unsee her as the friend she once was, and see her instead as a chapter I could close. Think about your own life for a moment. Where do you need to say goodbye without words? Maybe it's that colleague who undermines you in meetings, but you've never had the energy to call them out. Maybe it's a family member whose expectations weigh on you, but a confrontation would only stir more drama. Or maybe it's a habit, a routine, a version of yourself you've outgrown, but you're afraid to admit it. We hold on to these things, people, patterns, roles, because we think letting go means failure, means betrayal, means loss. But what if it's the opposite? What if letting go quietly, gently is a kind of strength, a kind of wisdom? I've seen this with others, too. There was a man I met at a workshop, let's call him Paul, who'd been stuck in a job he hated for years. Not because he couldn't leave, but because he felt he owed it to his team, his boss, his own history. He didn't quit with a resignation letter or a speech. He started by taking on fewer projects, saying no to overtime, gradually distancing himself from the role that defined him. Over months, he transitioned to freelance work, and one day he realized he hadn't stepped foot in that office in weeks. No drama, no fallout, just a fade, a shift, a quiet goodbye to a life that no longer fit. So here's what I want you to do, a ritual to carry with you as you listen to the rest of this story. Find a quiet moment tonight, tomorrow, whenever you feel ready, and light a candle. It doesn't have to be fancy, just a small flame, a point of focus. Sit with it. Let its glow steady your breath. Think of that person, that habit, that version of yourself you need to release. Say a silent farewell, not out loud, not to anyone else, just to yourself. Whisper it in your mind. I let you go. I release you. I move on. Watch the flame flicker. Let it symbolize that fade, that gentle ending. When you're ready, blow it out, and with it, let go of the need for words, for scenes, for closure that might never come. I did this after my friendship with Jane faded. I lit a candle on my kitchen table, sat in the dim light, and thought of her not with anger, not with sadness, but with gratitude for what we'd once shared, and clarity about what we'd become. I said my silent goodbye, watched the flame dance, and blew it out. In that small act, I felt the weight lift, not all at once, but enough to know I'd made the right choice. And you can do the same. This isn't about erasing the past or pretending it didn't matter. It's about honoring your own path, your own peace, your own right to move forward without dragging the old along. This ritual isn't just symbolic, it's practical. It gives you a moment to mark the end, to acknowledge the change, without the pressure of confrontation or explanation. Jane never knew I lit that candle, never knew I said goodbye in that quiet way. But I knew, and that was enough. Paul didn't tell his boss about his gradual fade. He just let the distance do the work. And you don't need to announce your goodbyes to the world. You just need to feel them, to honor them, to let them happen in the space between. So as you listen to this, carry that ritual with you. Think about that draining friendship, that stifling job, that outdated version of yourself. Plan your candle, your silence, your farewell. Meet that part of your life as a stranger would, without obligation, without history, without the need for a scene. Because in that quiet release, in that gentle fade, there's power. There's freedom. There's the chance to say goodbye without words, and to step into a new beginning with nothing but your own clear, unburdened heart. Chapter 8. The Stranger in the Mirror. There's a moment after you've let go, after the goodbyes, the fades, the releases, when you look in the mirror and wonder, who are you now? It's a strange, thrilling, sometimes terrifying question, because the person staring back isn't the same one who carried all those weights, all those expectations, all those old stories. You're lighter, freer, but also unfamiliar, a stranger to yourself in the best possible way. And that, my friend, is a gift, a chance to rediscover who you are when you're not defined by what you've left behind. Let me take you back to a time in my own life. Just after I'd said those quiet goodbyes, after the friendships faded, the routine shifted, the walls came down. I was standing in my living room one evening, the kind of evening where the light is soft and the world feels still, and I caught my reflection in the window. I didn't recognize myself, not in a bad way, but in a way that made my heart skip. The lines on my face were different, softer maybe, or harder, I couldn't tell. My eyes held a spark I hadn't seen in years, but there was also a question there, a wondering. Who was I now, that I wasn't the fixer, the pleaser, the person who stayed too long out of fear or duty? I decided to do something I'd never done before, something bold and a little scary. I signed up for a pottery class, not because I had any talent for it, not because I thought it would solve my life, but because it was new, because it was mine, because it was a way to meet this stranger in the mirror. The first class was awkward. I fumbled with the clay, got it all over my hands, laughed nervously with the other student. The teacher, a wiry woman with paint-stained fingers, showed us how to center the clay on the wheel, how to feel its weight, its resistance, its potential. And as I pressed my hands into that spinning mass, something clicked. I wasn't just making a bowl or a vase, I was making space for myself, for this new version of me who didn't need to prove anything, who could stumble and start again. That class became my anchor. Week after week, I showed up, my hands covered in slip, my mind clearing as I shaped something from nothing. I made lumpy mugs, crooked plates, and once a vase that collapsed mid-spin. But I loved every second of it. Not because I was good, but because I was free. Free to try, to fail, to create without the weight of who I'd been. And in that freedom, I started to see the stranger in the mirror differently. She wasn't the person who'd been defined by other people's expectations or her own fears. She was someone curious, someone brave, someone who could start fresh, even at 30-something, even after years of feeling stuck. That's the insight I want you to hold on to. You're not who you were, and that's a gift. When you release the past, when you let go of the roles, the grudges, the routines, you create room for a new self to emerge. It's not always comfortable. There's a vulnerability in not knowing who you are, in seeing a stranger where you once saw certainty. But that vulnerability? It's also opportunity. It's a chance to ask, who do I want to be now? Without the baggage of yesterday dragging you down. The you in the mirror isn't a failure or a ghost, she's a possibility, a fresh start, a person you can meet with wonder instead of judgment. Think about your own life for a moment. Who were you before all those weights? Before the job that drained you, the relationship that demanded too much, the dreams you shelved? And who are you now after letting go, after creating space? Maybe you've walked away from a toxic friendship, like I did with Jane, or stepped back from a routine that no longer served you. Maybe you've forgiven someone or yourself, and now you're standing in the quiet aftermath, wondering what comes next. That wondering? It's not a void, it's a beginning. The stranger in the mirror isn't a threat, she's an invitation. I've seen this with others, too. There was a woman I met at a conference, let's call her Elena, who'd spent years as a corporate lawyer, climbing the ladder, meeting every expectation, until one day she realized she hated it. She didn't quit with a grand gesture, she just started small, taking weekends to paint, to hike, to sit in silence. Each step was like meeting herself anew, like looking in the mirror and seeing not the lawyer, not the overachiever, but the artist, the dreamer, the person she'd forgotten. And in that rediscovery, she found joy, not in erasing her past, but in building on it, in letting it inform who she could be now. So here's what I want you to do, a question to carry with you as you listen to the rest of this story. Find a quiet moment tonight, tomorrow, whenever you can, and stand in front of a mirror. Not to critique, not to judge, but to see. Look into your own eyes and ask, what would a stranger see in me today? Not the you from 5 years ago, not the you defined by your job or your failures or your successes, but the you standing there now, post-release, post-change, post-growth. What do they notice? Is it the spark of curiosity, the lines of resilience, the quiet strength you didn't know you had? Let that question linger. Don't rush to answer it, just let it sit. Let it open you up to the possibility of who you are. I did this after my pottery class, standing in front of my bathroom mirror late one night, clay still under my nails. I asked, what would a stranger see? And what came back wasn't a list of flaws or achievements. It was a sense of peace, a flicker of excitement, a person who was still becoming, still discovering. The stranger in the mirror wasn't finished, and that was okay. She was alive, awake, ready to keep going. This question isn't about vanity or self-obsession. It's about reconnection, about meeting yourself with the same curiosity and kindness you'd offer someone new. The you in the mirror isn't who you were, and that's not a loss. It's a gift. It's the gift of change, of growth, of the chance to start fresh, to try new things, to shape yourself like clay on a wheel, imperfectly, beautifully, uniquely yours. So, as you listen to this, carry that question with you. Think about the releases you've made, the spaces you've created, the strangers you've met inside and out. Stand in front of that mirror or sit in silence and ask, what would a stranger see in me today? Let the answer surprise you, challenge you, inspire you, because in that question, in that moment of seeing anew, there's power. There's freedom. There's the chance to embrace the stranger in the mirror not as a mystery to solve, but as a friend to welcome, a self to love, a future to build. Chapter 9. New eyes, old faces. Have you ever noticed how strangers can be so fascinating? The way they move through the world, the stories you imagine behind their eyes, the questions you might ask if you had the chance. There's a spark there, a curiosity, a sense that anything is possible because you don't know them yet. But what about the people you do know, the ones you've lived with, loved, argued with, grown alongside? Over time, they can become like furniture in your life, familiar but unnoticed, their edges worn smooth by routine and history. What if we could bring that same spark, that beginner's mind, to the old faces we think we know so well? What if we could see them anew, not as fixed characters in our story, but as mysteries waiting to be explored? Let me take you back to a moment of my own, a time when I tried this with someone I thought I knew better than anyone, my father. For years, our relationship had been a steady rhythm of expectation and distance. He was the stoic provider, the man who fixed things, who rarely spoke of his feelings, who I assumed saw me as his little girl no matter how old I got. I'd visit him on holidays, share polite conversation, but there was always a wall, a sense that we were playing roles he'd written long ago. Then, one autumn after all, the releases and rediscoveries I'd been through, I decided to try something different. I asked him to go for a walk, just the two of us, in the park near his house. No agenda, no big talk, planned, just a walk. As we strolled, the leaves crunching underfoot, I decided to approach him like a stranger. Not the father I'd known for decades, but a man I was meeting for the first time. I asked questions I'd never thought to ask before. What was your favorite thing about your childhood? What scares you most these days? At first, he hesitated, his answers short, guarded. But as we kept walking, something shifted. He told me about growing up on a farm, how he loved the smell of hay but hated the isolation. He admitted he was terrified of losing his independence as he aged, of becoming a burden. I listened, really listened, not as his daughter expecting wisdom or reassurance, but as someone curious, someone open to whatever he might say. And in his voice, in his stories, I saw a stranger, a man with fears and joys I'd never considered, a person who'd lived a whole life before I came along, and who was still living one now. That walk changed everything. Not overnight, not dramatically, but subtly, deeply. I stopped seeing him as the unchangeable figure from my childhood and started seeing him as someone evolving, someone I could learn from and connect with in a new way. And he, I think, saw me differently too, not just as his daughter, but as a person with her own questions, her own curiosity. It wasn't about fixing our past or erasing our history. It was about bringing fresh eyes to an old face, about sparking that same wonder you feel when you meet someone new. I saw this play out in another way too, with a partner I'll call Mark. We'd been together for years, and like many long-term relationships, we'd fallen into a rut. Our conversations were predictable work. Bills, plans, and our connection felt more like habit than heart. One evening over dinner, I decided to try the same approach. I looked at him not as the man I'd shared a life with, but as a stranger I was meeting for the first time. I asked, "What's something you've always wanted to do but never tried?" He paused, surprised, then smiled a real smile, the kind I hadn't seen in months. He talked about wanting to learn to sail, about a childhood dream he'd buried under adult responsibilities. We ended up researching classes that week, not because we were fixing our relationship, but because I was curious about him again, and he was curious about me. That's the insight I want you to hold on to. Strangers spark curiosity. Bring that to what you know. When we meet someone new, we ask questions. We listen closely. We wonder about their stories. But with the people we've known for years, parents, partners, friends, we stop doing that. We assume we know them, that their story is written, that there's nothing left to discover. But people change, just like we do. They carry new dreams, new fears, new layers we might miss if we're not looking with fresh eyes. Approaching old faces with a beginner's mind doesn't erase the past, it enriches the present, opening up space for connection, for growth, for rediscovery. Think about your own life for a moment. Who's an old face you've stopped seeing clearly? Maybe it's your spouse, who you love but haven't really talked to in months, buried under the weight of daily life. Maybe it's a parent, like my father, whose role in your story feels so fixed you forget they're a person too, with their own journey. Or maybe it's a friend you've known forever, but who now feels like a shadow of who they used to be. What if you approached them as if you were meeting them for the first time? What questions would you ask? What might you learn? I've seen this work wonders for others too. There was a woman I met at a retreat. Let's call her Sarah, who'd been estranged from her mother for years over old arguments. She decided to call her mom, not to rehash the past, but to start fresh. She asked, "What's something you've always wanted to share with me but never did?" Her mother hesitated, then opened up about a passion for gardening she'd never pursued, a dream she'd buried under years of responsibility. That conversation didn't solve all their problems, but it cracked open a door, a chance to see each other not as adversaries, but as strangers with shared history and new potential. So, here's what I want you to do. A conversation started to carry with you as you listen to the rest of this story. Next time you're with someone familiar, an old friend, a partner, a parent, ask them, "What's something I don't know about you?" It doesn't have to be deep or dramatic. It could be a childhood memory, a hidden talent, a fear, a dream. The point isn't to fix or change anything, it's to spark curiosity, to invite them to share something new, to see them as more than the role they've played in your life. Listen closely, without judgment, without expectation, as if you're hearing their story for the first time. I did this with my father again, months after that walk. Over coffee, I asked, "What's something I don't know about you?" He chuckled, then told me about a brief stint as a musician in his 20s, playing guitar in a band that never made it big. I'd never known that side of him, and in that story, I saw a stranger, a young man with dreams, just like me. With Mark, I asked the same question, and he shared a fear of heights he'd never admitted before. Each time, the question opened a door, not just to them, but to me, reminding me that we're all more than our histories, more than our roles. This isn't about pretending the past doesn't exist or ignoring the complexities of long-term relationships. It's about adding depth, about bringing that spark of curiosity back into the familiar. Strangers intrigue us because we don't know their stories yet, but the people we love have stories too, new ones waiting to be uncovered if we're willing to ask, to listen, to see. So, as you listen to this, carry that question with you. Think about the old faces in your life, the ones you think you know so well. Plan to ask, "What's something I don't know about you?" Watch their eyes, hear their voice, let their answer surprise you. Because in that moment, in that act of curiosity, you're not just reconnecting with them, you're reconnecting with the wonder of human connection, with the joy of discovery, with the beauty of seeing anew, even in the faces you've known all along. Chapter 10. The Art of Beginning Again. Life isn't a straight line, is it? It's not a single story with a beginning, middle, and end, neatly tied up with a bow. It's more like a series of moments, a tapestry of starts and stops, of letting go and beginning again. And the beautiful thing? We get to choose those moments, to unknow what we think we know, to re-meet the world, ourselves, the people around us, with fresh eyes, fresh hearts, fresh hope. That's the art of beginning again, not once, but over and over, as many times as we need. Let me take you through a montage of my own stranger moments, small shifts that changed me, that taught me this truth. It started with that split second in a crowded room, when I saw you, yes, you, the listener, the person I once knew and didn't recognize you, and felt that flicker of relief, that question of what if, That was the spark, the hook that pulled me into this journey. But it didn't stop there. There were other moments, quieter, more personal, each one a fresh start. Each one a chance to unsee and re-see. Take the day I walked away from Jane, my draining friend, not with a fight but with a fade. A silent goodbye marked by a candle's flicker. That was a beginning, not an end, but a new chapter where I learned I could set boundaries without drama, where I discovered I could be whole without her. Or the week I spent in that mountain cabin, alone with the trees and my thoughts, where the silence let me breathe, let me see my job, my dreams, my fears as if I were a stranger peering in. That solitude wasn't just a break, it was a reset, a moment where I chose to begin again, not as the person I'd been, but as someone curious, someone open. There was the pottery class, too, my hands messy with clay, my heart messy with possibility. I wasn't an artist, not really, but in that studio, I met a version of myself I'd forgotten, someone who could stumble, laugh, create without needing to be perfect. And the walk with my father, where I asked him about his childhood, his fears, and saw not just my dad, but a man, a stranger with stories I'd never known. That conversation wasn't just about him, it was about me, about beginning again with someone I thought I understood, but didn't, not really. Then there was Mark, my partner, over dinner one night, when I asked him about a dream he'd buried, and he asked me the same. We weren't fixing our relationship, we were rediscovering it, approaching each other as strangers, sparking curiosity where routine had dulled it. In the mirror that night I stood before it, clay under my nails, and asked, what would a stranger see in me today? The answer wasn't a list of flaws or achievements, it was a promise, a possibility, a person still becoming, still starting anew. Each of these moments, small as they were, wove together into a pattern, life as a series of fresh starts. Not grand gestures, not life-altering decisions, but quiet choices to unknow, to release, to see again. The job I hated? I didn't quit overnight, but I started saying no, taking space, imagining it gone. The grudge against my brother? I let it fade, not with a confrontation, but with a stranger's apology I never sent, a silent release that set me free. The routines, the expectations, the versions of myself I'd outgrown, they didn't disappear, but I began to approach them differently, with curiosity instead of fear, with wonder instead of weight. That's the insight I want you to carry with you. We can always choose to unknow and re-meet the world. It's not a one-time thing, not a finish line you cross and never look back. It's a practice, a rhythm, a way of living where you're always asking, what if I saw this differently? What if I let go of what I think I know? The people, the places, the parts of yourself, you don't have to be bound by the past. You can meet them again as strangers, with no history to hold you back, no expectations to weigh you down. And in that choice, there's power, there's freedom, there's the chance to keep beginning, keep growing, keep living. Think about your own life for a moment. Where have you already begun again? Maybe it was that moment you walked away from a toxic friendship, or took a solo trip, or asked a question you'd never dared before. Maybe it's happening now, as you listen, as you consider the stranger moments you've encountered along this journey. And where could you begin again? Is it with a parent you've stopped seeing clearly? A dream you've shelved? A version of yourself you're ready to shed? Life isn't static. It's a series of opportunities to unsee, to release, to start fresh. And you hold that power in every moment. I've seen this in others too. There was a man I met at a workshop, let's call him David, who'd been stuck in a career rut for years. He didn't make a grand exit. He started small, taking a class in photography, asking his wife about her childhood dreams, lighting a candle to say goodbye to a grudge he'd carried too long. Each step was a beginning, each choice a chance to meet his life, his love, his self, as if for the first time. And in those small shifts, he found not just change, but joy, not just release, but renewal. So here's what I want you to do, a commitment to carry with you as you move forward from this story. This week, pick one area of your life to approach as a stranger. It could be a relationship. Ask that partner, that parent, that friend, what's something I don't know about you? It could be a routine. Try a new path to work, a new hobby, a new silence. It could be yourself. Stand in front of the mirror, light a candle, visualize a dream you've forgotten. Whatever it is, commit to it. Not as a chore, not as a fix, but as a choice to unknow, to re-meet, to begin again. I did this last month, choosing to approach my work life as a stranger. I asked myself, what would someone new see in this job, in this role? The answer wasn't to quit, but to shift less email, more creativity, more space for what I love. And in that shift, I found energy, purpose, a fresh start I didn't know I needed. You can do the same. Pick your area, make your commitment, and watch what happens when you bring that beginner's mind, that stranger's curiosity, to something familiar. This isn't the end, it's another beginning. The art of beginning again isn't about perfection or permanence. It's about possibility, about choosing, every day, every moment, to see anew, to let go, to meet the world with wonder. So, as you listen to this, carry that commitment with you. Think about your life, your loves, yourself. Choose one place to start fresh this week, to unknow and re-meet. Because in that choice, in that act, you're not just changing, you're living, fully, freely, as the stranger who's always been there, waiting to be discovered, waiting to begin again. Conclusion: strangers forever. We've come a long way together, haven't we? From that first moment, when I saw you across the room and didn't recognize you, and felt that strange, sweet relief, to now here at the end of this journey, where we've dug into roots, released burdens, and rediscovered what it means to begin again. It's been a path of unknowing, of letting go, of seeing with new eyes, not just the people around us, but ourselves, our lives, our world. And in that shift, something profound has happened. Our perspective has changed. We're not the same as when we started, and that's the point. Think back with me for a moment. We started in the roots, where familiarity weighed us down, relationships that felt too known, stories we carried like anchors, walls time built brick by brick. We explored the fear of letting go, the courage to unsee, the beauty of distance, the quiet power of saying goodbye without words. We learned to forgive as strangers, to rediscover ourselves in the mirror, to bring curiosity to old faces, and to embrace life as a series of fresh starts. Each step was a release, each moment a rebirth, each choice a chance to meet the world anew. And now here we are, lighter, freer, but also more awake, more aware of the strangers we can be to others and to ourselves. Let me share one last story, a quiet, powerful moment that sums it all up for me. It was a late afternoon a few months ago. After all these shifts, after the pottery classes, the walks with my father, the fades, and the beginnings, I was sitting on my porch, the sun setting in streaks of gold and pink, the air cool and still. No phone, no plans, just me and the moment. And as I watched the light fade, I felt it, a deep, steady freedom. Like a weight I hadn't even known I was carrying had lifted. Not because everything was perfect, not because I'd solved every problem or mended every rift, but because I knew I could. I knew I could let go, start over, see anew whenever I needed to. I looked out at the street, at the neighbor I'd waved to 100 times, but never really seen, and I thought, what if I met you now, as a stranger? And in that thought there was peace, there was possibility, there was a sense that I was exactly where I needed to be, free to keep growing. That's what this journey has been about, not erasing the past, but reframing it, not fixing everything, but freeing ourselves to choose. We don't have to be bound by who we were, who they were, what happened. We can always unknow, always re-meet, always begin again. And that freedom, it's not just a gift, it's a practice, a way of living where every day holds the chance to see with new eyes, to step forward with hope. So here's my call to you as we close this chapter together. Next time you see them or yourself, pause. Take a breath, feel the moment, and ask, can we be strangers again? Can I let go of what I think I know, of the weight, the expectations, the roles, and meet you fresh, meet me fresh, with curiosity, with kindness, with wonder, then step forward, not with fear, not with hesitation, but with the courage you've built, the clarity you've gained, the possibility you now hold. It doesn't have to be big. It could be a question to a friend, a new path to work, a silent farewell, a look in the mirror. But let it be yours. Let it be a choice to keep unseeing, keep releasing, keep beginning. And as we part ways here, let me leave you with this hope. Hope that you can carry this forward, that you can meet the world as strangers forever, always finding new ways to connect, to grow, to live. Hope that the roots you've untangled, the releases you've made, the rebirths you've embraced will keep unfolding, keep surprising you, keep showing you that life isn't fixed, it's fluid, it's yours to shape. There's possibility in every moment, in every face, in every reflection, if you're willing to see it. You're not done, and neither am I. We're strangers still, to ourselves and to each other, and that's not a loss, it's a promise, a chance to keep discovering, Keep loving, keep beginning again. So, as the light fades, as the story ends, carry that with you. Pause, ask, step forward. Be strangers forever, and find the joy, the freedom, the hope in every new meeting, every new day. You've got this, and I'll be right there with you, unknowing, re-seeing, beginning again too.